that are uncomfortable and challenge issues that are becoming accepted and swept under the ground to the point where we are not addressing the real fundamentals. Take a simple example. Oil price fell, and we repeated the old mantra that we've been hearing since 1970, whatever, that Nigeria must diversify our economy. I mean, that's absolute nonsense. I mean, it's good soundbite, but it makes no sense. What do you mean by diversify the economy? When is the economy diversified? Who is diversifying the economy? Where did they go to diversify the economy? There are more questions than answers at the end of the day. So if in reality, you have to be willing to say, good, we have a problem. And you must be willing, like I've always said it on channels, you must be willing to address the rigor of saying what is the problem. And the only way you do that is get someone who will say things that are uncomfortable. That he says uncomfortable doesn't mean he doesn't like you. It actually might mean that he's your best friend. But he comes in and says to you, listen, government is talking about change begins with you. Yes, it begins with me, but what does change begin with me mean? What am I changing to become? A dreamer, a driver, a worker? What part of me is changing? And how does it, I mean, that's why if you look at driving vision statement, you start with talking what are your core values? What are the purposes that we're setting out to do? And once that is a gap, you have a problem. So we haven't missed the opportunity. We've missed opportunities, but we can still do it again.
Mr. Baya, do we, when you say we can go back, we've had constitutional conferences, we've had committees, we've had panels. There are piles and piles of reports that are lined out there that some believe will help to define values, help to define where we're going to. When you say we can go back, what do you mean?
Okay, let's clarify that. Two problems we have as a system. Now, Africans and Nigerians generally have this weakness. We tend to focus so much on the end product rather than on the process. And that's a big danger. We want to get answers in 20 minutes.
We don't allow processes
go through. That's a difficulty. So we have got to start. If you ask me what the whole issue is, if you want to discuss, for example, we're dealing with Constitutional Conference. The Constitution is actually a tool that is used to actualize a vision. And the problem is, like I said before here, if you look at the American Constitution, it says, or American Declaration of Independence, it talks about we the people have thought about what we want to become. If you look at our Constitution, it talks about whereas and whereas and whereas. And I always say the difference is that one is a legal document, the other is a visionary document. So if you start from the wrong place, you end up getting the wrong results. So how do we go in and say go back? I don't mean go back and start digging up all those things. Let's start by doing the fundamental first. Come up, first of all, what I would call a framework. A framework that says, over the next 1.5 years or 2 years of governance, maybe in the next 6 months, government's intention is to establish a right and proper vision for the nation. And it will be done by this process. And we can argue the process out. When we reach a process, that following that articulation of that vision, stage 2 will be the turning of that vision into goals and landmarks and objectives. Stage 3 will be the appointment of men competent and capable to show. And those men have to justify. You know, what I'm saying is that you have to create processes and structures that allow not just that stops you from having a talk shop, which is what we've been specialists at doing.
So, the government right now is saddled with a proper implementation of the 2016 budget. There's a 2017 budget that they're going to start discussing on, and then revenues to complete the run of the 2016 budget and to run the 2017 budget, avenues to resuscitate the economy, pay salaries, put up infrastructure. Now, there are a myriad of things facing the government. Absolutely. There's security, there's corruption, and all of that. And yet you say the government needs to sit down and say, this is how we're going to do this. Yeah. How do you expect a balance between this?
It's straightforward. There are two things you've got to recognize. A lot of these things you just listed actually are symptoms of the first one. So what do you do when a person has malaria and has high temperature? The first thing you've got to recognize, yes, the high temperature will kill the patient. So what do doctors do? They give you a cold bath. There are things you need to deal with as they go. But if that's all you keep on doing, you keep on taking the Panadol and giving the patient a cold bath while the malaria parasite is running riot in the system, even when the patient's temperature has come down, it's only a temporary thing. So whatever you do, you must find the balance between the two. So what do doctors do? They take the patient through a cold bath. At the same time, find a way of giving him an injection to deal with the urgent things that need to be dealt with before they kill the patient. And then you give the patient an anti-malaria device that takes care of the main core. You do the three at the same time, otherwise there's no point taking action if the actions will have no results. We're having a recession fundamentally now because even when our economy was supposed to be growing and the largest growing economy, fundamentally it was a government-driven economy. Our economy was built on one simple commodity, oil. The price of oil fell, our economy ran into problems. Someone said the other day, went in Abuja to the hotels are empty because Abuja was built on government money being distributed. It wasn't the economy. So that's not economy. So that fundamental has to be addressed with. Otherwise, you're still going to run into a situation, even if you seem to come out of your recession. I read 1.2% economic growth. What does that mean in English? Frankly speaking, to the ordinary man on the street, how does that translate? How does it affect his life? So, how do we deal with them? Let's deal with all of them at the same time. If it doesn't have to take 6 months. Government comes up and says, obviously we have a vision problem. And get people who will now challenge you in the thinking. It might take a week of intensive something. Close the room and say, nobody comes out of this room until we have a clear-cut vision that can help solve the problem. And that vision has to have what I call tests to confirm that it can do that. This vision will produce results. How do we expect it to produce results? Not wild ideas that we hope that we will get somehow, somewhere, by doing something which has no meaning, no definition.
So for drivers of this vision, in this place, key ministers and heads of agencies and parastatals, what are your expectations of these gentlemen and women for the new year?